Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to have our esteemed guest today in this episode of Meet Expert. He is 9 times ServiceNow MVP. Yes, consecutive 9 times. And he's sharing his immense knowledge with community across various channels. In this episode of Meet Expert, today he's going to share one real-time app engine story that include each and every aspect of creating an app with a real-time example, and that to include all the strategies, all the compliances, all the values, all the important steps which you have to take care. So stay tuned till the end, and please welcome Mr. Ashutosh Munot. Thank you so much, Ashutosh, for joining today, and I'm really grateful for you sharing your time and your energy today. People are waiting for you, so I will just pass on uh, the mic to you, please. Can you please provide
Thank
a
you
bit
so
of your
much.
introduction?
Yeah. Thanks, Ominder, for having me. So, just for the listeners, I'm Ashutosh Munot. I am multiple times ServiceNow MVP. Right now, I'm based out of Netherlands.
Okay,
Uh, I am working as a platform owner and architect with one of the financial institutes here in Netherlands. My expertise lies within, for example, citizen development, low code, no code, ITOM, HR, security operations, and so
okay,
on. My total experience with the ecosystem is around 12 years now. So I started with ServiceNow, I think, right from Aspen and Berlin
okay,
release. So I have seen the evolution of the platform. And on the personal note, I think I do a lot on community, and I share a lot of content also via my podcast, YouTube channel. I think I will give the links to Omendra, and you can see it in the description of this episode.
definitely, definitely.
Um, and on the again on the personal note, I'm in Netherlands with my wife, and I have a son, 2.5 years old, and we are staying here in Netherlands for almost 5 years now.
Okay, great, great. So you have seen service now from zero to hero.
Yeah, I think I've seen the evolution that how for example, UI 14, 15, 16, then service portal, now employee center, and the UI builder story. So I've seen how quickly it has evolved, and now we are in a FOMO of Gen AI, let's say. Everywhere
Right.
it's Gen AI, Gen AI. So again, just to give a brief agenda for today's session, I had a discussion with Omender, and we wanted to share some real-time use cases and experience with low code no code platform. And when we talk about low code no code, it's App Engine Studio, right? In service.
Yeah.
So, so the request, what I have towards the audience is please listen to this carefully, because I'm going to share how to start with App Engine Studio, basically, governance around it. I will also touch on some use cases which I think is useful for the audience, and I will share my learnings. And towards the end, we will also touch upon some sort of roadmap how you can uh, use the strategy of, for example, CSDM, crawl, walk, run, fly kind of thing. It also applies to App Engine Studio, by the way, and then how you can scale it within your organization. Do you
Okay.
want to add anything, Omendra, on top of this?
Yeah, definitely. Because when we do things in demo, we do not have that picture which you are going to share today. So it is very, very important for everyone, because creating an app is simple, just going there, creating a new scope and all that's simple. But with some business agenda, with some business context, this is the main thing which definitely provide value to all the people who are listening to this podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. So,
Yeah.
to get started with App Engine Studio, um, I think again, people who are listening to this concept for the first time, App Engine Studio is nothing but a low code, no code platform developed by ServiceNow, where you can have your business stakeholders or business users to develop on the ServiceNow platform by just dragging and dropping things. You don't have to code. The whole coding uh, framework is taken care by your pro developers in the organization. Um, Now, most of the time, what happens, Omindra, is also people want more power, right? They also want
Right.
to do some coding. But I want to really make it very clear that there is very less power in App Engine Studio to code. If you
Okay.
want to be a, if you want to, for example, if you want to create a script include, or if you want to create an extensive script for an integration,
Uh-huh.
you have to do it using Studio, the legacy Studio thing. You can't do that in App Engine Studio. There are very limited options what you can do in App Engine Studio, but powerful options, which we will cover during this
Yeah, just
session
one
as well.
doubt here. So when you say limited, it means do we have limited capabilities also in app?
Yeah, yeah. So um, there is always there is some overlap between
Okay.
Studio and App Engine Studio. For example, you can create a flow in Studio as well as in App Engine Studio, right? It is called as experience in App Engine Studio.
Right.
But the example which I gave, where you want to write a script include, you can't do that within App Engine Studio. You can do that in Studio. So there are some differences with respect to what you can do in App Engine Studio and what you can't do in App Engine Studio.
Okay.
Again, I have a great diagram for this, which I will share with you, Omindra, after the session. Maybe it's good if you can just pin that diagram. But and the basic difference which I think with respect to App Engine Studio and Studio is uh, the way how you feel with respect to Studio and App Engine Studio, because App Engine Studio, it's very intuitive.
Hmm.
It's very uh, maybe I can use attractive to work with, because you can drag and drop the things, edit things in one pane, same like Studio, but App Engine Studio gives you more uh, power because it has an integration with Catalog Builder, it has an integration with UI Builder, it has an integration with Flow Designer, and so on.
Okay. Okay.
So this was basic about like App Engine Studio, the difference between App Engine Studio. But what I want to share is App Engine Studio for everyone? My
Yeah.
experience says I don't think so. It's for everyone. You have to really evaluate within the organization if low code, no code platform, mainly App Engine Studio, is for each and every organization or not. And within your organization, you need to evaluate this very properly, because it also depends on the maturity of the DevOps engineers you have within your organization, the business
Okay.
stakeholders, if they are willing to use this or not, because there are so many competitors out there for low code, no code platform.
Mm-hmm.
And if you already have something competing with ServiceNow, you have to be ready. You have to evaluate the technology properly, and we should be able to convince our business as well that why they should move to this particular platform. So what my experience says is, uh, specifically for us, App Engine Studio was the way to go, because uh, we see ServiceNow as enterprise service management tool within our organization.
Okay.
And when I say that, which means it means that the catalogs will be in ServiceNow, right? There will be some business processes which should be hosted into ServiceNow. And that was
Okay.
already a foundation for us to start with App Engine Studio.
Okay.
So there is always a prerequisite or a checklist, I would say, before starting with App Engine Studio. So one of them is this particular point, whether it is really for us or not.
Okay.
Evaluate that. And if the answer is yes, then you have to proceed to the next checklist, like what we want to do with this particular platform. What are our boundaries? But before I move there, I just want to check if you have any questions on this
Yeah. So,
particular part.
so my question is like, when you say we have to evaluate, So when you say the maturity level is achieved to start App Engine Studio, let's say my company is using ServiceNow from last 2 years.
Mhm.
So in that 2 years, how should I evaluate that thing like that I'm ready for App Engine Studio? You mentioned the processes and all, so please elaborate that thing.
Yeah. So for that was our example, but I have also seen customers who directly start with App Engine Studio. They don't have ServiceNow at all in their organization, but they only recently realized the power of the platform. So, and that is the reason I said that you have to evaluate with respect to other tools if this is the way to go or not. Uh,
Okay,
Again, each customer has a different environment. What helps is to evaluate basically is I think ITSM is basic, right, in ServiceNow environment. But there are some customers, like I mentioned, who don't have ServiceNow, but who don't have those processes, but only App Engine Studio. Their checklist will differ a lot. They will do some RFC, some POCs with App Engine Studio and compare it with other tools.
okay,
Um, but there, then I think, and again, I don't know, I'm just saying this that cost and ease of use plays an important role when you're evaluating this with other tools. And the CI/CD integration on App Engine Studio is awesome. So you
okay,
can deploy the app very quickly from your non-production instances to production instances by using the CI/CD APIs which ServiceNow recently developed for App Engine Studio. I'm
okay,
not talking about source controls. I'm purely talking about the integration. There is a submit button. If you guys know what I'm talking about on App Engine Studio, when you want to submit an app or publish an app, you have to click that submit button, and then it uses the organization's application repository, uh, and then it links your application to that repository. So when we go to store, there you can see it. But coming back to the topic, this kind of things makes it more intuitive, how
okay,
easily we can deploy the things. And recently in I think in the last release, we also have an integration with change management now. So if you're deploying an app, ServiceNow is automatically creating a change,
change request.
standard
Okay,
change, of course,
okay,
and it is helping you to deploy and respect your change management processes because in specifically in for our case in financial institutes, change is very important. Each deployment needs a change. So to conclude on this, I would say it really depends on how you look at the technology. For us, the upper hand was that we were already using ServiceNow from a long time,
okay,
and we always believe in better together story because the automations which we are doing using App Engine Studio, few of them really rely on our CMDB processes, right? And single source of truth within the organization is CMDB
yeah,
service now. So there are few things. Foundation data was very clear, and all those things actually helped us to adopt App Engine Studio quickly.
okay. One more question. When we talk about App Engine Studio, is there any favorite domain? Means based on your experience, can you means do you have any incident or something like that where you see that this domain does not support or does not have apps, or we should avoid creating app in that domain? I mean banking or networking or such domains there, right? So any customer which you see as where they should not use app, like it's negative advantage for that for those people.
I would not say that I don't know any domain where we can't use ServiceNow App Engine Studio because
Okay.
ServiceNow is famous, or App Engine Studio is famous for digitizing your processes. So
Yeah.
your Outlook, Excel processes, irregardless of which domain you are in, you can
Okay.
use App Engine Studio and start building your own apps.
Okay.
And um, so this was the positive side of having a low code, no code platform within an organization that you can literally automate all your processes and put a workflow behind it. Uh, and recently, if you see ServiceNow also calls it as a creator workflow, right? They have four domains now: employee workflows, creator workflows,
Mm-hmm.
customer workflows, and this is creator workflow. And that creator term really justifies that why you should use App Engine Studio, because it is very easy to build your or digitize your processes.
Okay.
Um, but I would like to mention that if the process is, for example, RPA now, right? Service now launched RPA. Those kind of processes, if you don't have RPA licenses or if you don't have any RPA tool within the organization, uh, it becomes very hard to integrate with this kind of tools or to automate these kind of processes using ServiceNow. Then there will be, of course, a manual process which you are putting into the system, but which will help you to start the process in ServiceNow and end the process in ServiceNow, and then there will be a human intervention. But we should
Okay.
always focus on reducing the time of people who are using that processes or working behind the scenes on that processes, right? So that is always our aim as well, that how can we reduce the time from weeks to days, days to hours, by automating, innovating, integrating with multiple tools.
Okay.
Um, and then I would like to give shout out to Integration Hub here,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that has solved our many problems. We are currently using UiPath integrations. We are using Microsoft integrations or spokes from Integration Hub, which has solved so many problems for us, and it has literally reduced uh, a process time from weeks to hours. And we will talk about
Okay.
that use case in some time. Anyway,
Okay. Sure.
any other question
No,
before we
I'm good.
go?
Please proceed.
Yeah, yeah. So another prerequisite, I think, is of course how you want to onboard people onto this particular App Engine Studio within your organization. So there is always an onboarding factor which you need to decide. Why? Because there is a license cost associated with your App Engine. Then
Okay.
you will have to manage the developers over the period of time. You don't want it to be maintenance prone. It should be very easy for you to scale this solution in future. All
Okay.
these things are, let's say, prerequisite. And I think in Knowledge 2023, we also gave one demo where we compared it with car. So, for example, technology is car. Which car you want to buy? Which car you
Mm-hmm.
want to use to go from a destination A to destination B, right?
Okay.
Second is, before I give you the car key so you can drive, we need to make sure that you have a license and you have a proper knowledge to drive this car, which is nothing but a training. So we have
Right.
now learning, we have uh, a recommendation is have your own trainings so that people can learn from your own environment. And then the last part is, once you do the training, you do an assessment, and when you pass, we give you the car keys. So this is basically a journey of onboarding people onto this, and this has to be thought before rolling out App Engine Studio.
Okay.
Um, and the last point, which I would say we should think of, is the boundaries. Uh, like, for example, what are we doing going to do with ATF? What are we going to do with instance scans? Are we going to give integration rights to these people? Can they create the integrations on their own or not? And now ServiceNow is helping a lot in this area by creating some granular roles so that you can expose only that component or that
Mm-hmm.
part
Right.
to the end users, right? All these things should be part of your governance module and let's say checklist, because governance is nothing but putting things on paper before you go live or before you
Right.
even start trying few things. Um, and to end the governance and checklist topic, I think we should start small. We should not uh, do a testing or do a POC with people who already know ServiceNow. I think you should have a focus group, which is a mixture of
Mm-hmm.
business stakeholders plus DevOps teams. Why? Because then you have different personas who are thinking in a different way, and that actually leads to your success. So what
Okay.
we did basically is we started with one team. We did some rigorous sessions with them, discussed with them, hey, how you want to, what extra rights you need, are these rights enough for you? Then we came up with a third persona, which was, so you have in App Engine business users, which are really low code, no code users. You
Mm-hmm.
have pro ServiceNow developers, which are like people like us. And then
Right.
we invented a middle layer, which we call as power users, who can also do some part of coding and who can also do some drag and drop, but then they use Studio and then they don't use App Engine Studio for each and everything. So they use
Okay.
both the things as per their convenience, which I know as a experienced developer is bit weird, but we then tell them that, hey, you can do this here, you can do that here. It's your choice what you want to use. And I think when we do this, the checklist, the evaluation is done. Then the next point which I would like to say is governance uh, one time activity? I think no. You need to keep investing in governance. You need to keep getting the feedback from your stakeholders. You
Right.
should see, okay, for example, hey, this guy wanted to deploy the things in let's say by using CI/CD APIs of ServiceNow. But there are few developers who know or who are comfortable with update sets. Can we have these two solutions in place? Now, this again ties with governance. Why? Because uh, when you put things on paper and when you communicate it with your stakeholder and when you
Mm-hmm.
create the training material, this all things should be finalized on paper so that you can uh, explain them how to create an update set, how to retrieve it, how to add it to a batch or a release. That is, I'm just giving some example.
Right.
Second, if you're using App Engine Studio APIs, how to click on submit button and what will happen in the background scenes, because I have seen many people asking questions. Okay, I clicked on submit button, but I don't see an application in production.
Oh,
What happened? So
they have to
just to
retrieve it.
explain the audience, uh, after submitting that button, we have a principle called as 4I principle. My team, platform team, does a thorough review of that particular application which is going to go to production. Then we approve it. Then it
Right.
goes to test. We tell the test stakeholder to test it in test, and then we move it to acceptance and production if we get an approval in the test instance. Now, that's the reason I said governance is not one-time process. It has to be a
Right.
continuous improvement and continuous development within the organization, and it has to be communicated uh, well in advance, as well as whenever we make some changes, we should communicate it and keep it at a central place where people can find the information, like, for example, knowledge articles on our own
Mm-hmm.
platform, so that people have a transparency of what we are doing and what they will get by getting onboarded onto this particular service.
Okay.
Before we move ahead to a use case, which I think is kind of a lessons learned why we actually adopted this, do you have any extra thing for me or any other question for
No,
me?
I'm fine right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, please
Um,
proceed.
so I will start. What I will do is I before again entering into the use case, I will first explain people that why we should also invest in onboarding or not onboarding intake, because that is one of the pain point currently I see in the market, that people are struggling to do an intake for applications. Few companies I see, they really want to automate the whole procedure,
Mm-hmm.
right from asking the questions on a catalog form, create an application, automatically deploying it to production by using this CI/CD APIs, which we just talked about. And few of them like us, we have a request form where people can go and request for an application,
Okay.
but we don't create that in we don't create an application on the fly. That part we have at the moment, we are using it from last 3 years now. We are still kept it manual, and there is a reason behind it because we wanted to really stay uh, focused. We wanted to have governance over license cost. We are not allowing people to create tables, roles, and ACLs. That is purely done by our central team.
Okay.
But we give them, we elevated our program, and what we did is we gave them access to create integrations. They can use an integration hub spoke, configure
Integration
it
hub.
in their own
Okay.
way, and they can use it. But when we do an intake, we have a process in place that if I get a request that hey, I want to have an app XYZ, then what we do is we connect with the stakeholder, we ask them some nasty questions, we answer their questions. For example, one thing which we always keep in mind is we are not duplicating the apps. We
Okay.
are not creating a pollution in our environment or unnecessary noise, because there can be some processes which can be combined,
Right.
and we can reuse the components or the templates which we are building. That is one thing. Second, do you only want to have an application because you have catalog item? There is no automation behind it, only workflow behind it. Then what we do is we onboard them to a generic application, scope application, which we have created for catalog items.
Okay.
So 70 to 80% of our people are doing that there. Recently, we also gave them rights to do integration in that scope now. So first, we started only with request fulfillment, where you can create a catalog item, you can create a flow or a workflow,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can deploy it towards production uh, without any integration support, anything. But the second phase was integration. Third phase is now doing more and more robotic process automation using UiPath and so on. And during intake, we discuss all these things. Hey, what is your future? Do you want to automate, or do you only want a plain
One time.
application
Mm-hmm.
which will create tasks, uh, and then people will just use it and you are just going to assign the task? If yes, you get a generic container, which is generic application. You have secure information. You want some extra tables in service now. Then we create new application. Then we talk about license. Then we talk about recurring cost, and all these things. And this is very important to know. Again, this is my experience, right? But few organizations might be working with respect to the cost allocation in a different way. That
Mm-hmm.
freedom ServiceNow gives them. But in our case, we really have boundaries on these areas, that intake should be very, very, very clear, so that you don't have any governance issues or
Later.
compliance issues later on.
Right.
Right from the purpose of the application till the deployment of the application and how they are going to deploy the application. We discuss all these things. Then we create an application, we create an onboarding document, we hand it over to them. We do ask them one important question, and that is, do you want to develop into this application, or do
Okay.
you want my team's help to initially develop this application for you and then hand it over to you so you can maintain it in future? Why? Because they also need some time to get trained into the application. But
Mm-hmm.
the evolution of this low code no code thing was, at least in our organization, was we don't want to wait that much time. We want to build quicker and deploy faster. That was our goal. We wanted to give power to people, build it, deploy it, and we combine this. So what we do is we as a platform team, our ops person will support them to create an application or help them or guide them to how to create, for example, a script, how to create a
Mm-hmm.
flow, how to create, let's say, an custom action, for example. We will guide them, but they will do it. So they learn uh, when they do things, right? And I think we should invest in this. Initially, it will take time. I think uh, our first success was in 6 months, but after 6 months,
Hmm.
so our first application went live in after launching this program. It was somewhere around 4 to 6 months, but after that, we are now around 200 developers who are developing on this application,
So
and
these
that is
are, you
because
can
of
say, these are citizen developers.
yes. So we have,
Okay.
like I mentioned, three layers. Forget about the admins. So the business users or the business stakeholders and the pro users or pro developer, pro users combined is somewhere around 200 who are developing on the platform.
Okay.
And that was only possible because of continuous improvement. We took feedback, we did our intake procedure correctly. We failed. So I'm not saying that from beginning we did everything properly. We have improved our intake process also over the period of time because we learned a lot when we started onboarding people, when we started doing intake with the customers. Uh, we have our own failures also. Like for example, we never asked about the cost, and then then we had an
Exponential.
issue later on. Second, we didn't ask them about the personas. Hey, do you also need a real role who can read the process in production? Right? These are my lessons learned when what mistakes we did during onboarding or during the intake procedures. What we also one important thing which I learned was uh, I think we should really say no to few things to customers. We should be open to say
Okay.
no, because
Right.
if customer comes with a weird idea and they say, hey, I want to build this, can you do it? Of course we should say, hey, no, this is something which we can build it in this way or that way, or ServiceNow has a different product which you can evaluate if you want to buy that
Okay.
product instead of building it into App Engine Studio. All these things we should be very transparent, and very important is, I think, try to say no if we see that we are not following the best practices within the platform.
So can we say that before doing all this, we should hand over a kind of checklist or template to the customer who are looking to create an app? So is it something which you are already doing? Means instead of having a call at the very beginning, we can hand over or we can mail them, this is the checklist and provide answers to these things. So will it
Yeah.
help?
So what we do, of course, that will help. That is not a problem. But what we do at the moment is we have a basic form. And like I said,
Okay.
people wanted to automate this whole thing from onboarding till deployment, and ServiceNow actually does that for you also out of the box. If you request an application using the intake form from ServiceNow, it will create an app for you once you approve it. Uh, but we had some struggles there because we wanted some extra variables on the form. We wanted to map few things within the system, and if we were trying to do that, we were actually violating our own principle of staying out of the box with this
Okay.
pipeline procedure. So we had some challenges there. Um, handling the checklist to them in advance is something which we do via knowledge article. We have some knowledge articles which is
Okay.
tied with the catalog item, where we tell them that, hey, this is the process which we are going to follow. So be ready with your questions for that particular meeting. And of course, there will be some specific questions for that specific application when we discuss that in meeting. But we do provide them with a high level context of what is possible and what is not possible in this particular program,
Okay.
mainly in App Engine Studio. So, of course, to answer your question, yes, it will help.
Okay. Great.
Okay, then moving to the use case. So when we started this particular initiative, we had a use case where there is a process internally where we review the IP addresses before implementing them on firewall. There
Okay.
is one team who is actually using Ansible Tower to do some calculations for the IP addresses. They have their own pipeline. That pipeline does calculations for them, and they wanted to show end-to-end visibility of this process somewhere, right? I'm not even talking about ServiceNow yet. How they were doing initially was they were uh, doing it in Excel and Word document. So they had a Word
Okay.
document where they were putting the details about, okay, this is the name of the firewall, this is the source, this is the destination, this is the IP, this is the protocol which we should open on this particular firewall, right? I think you might have heard tools like Ansible, Checkpoint, Palo Alto. There are some threat intel tools also. So what we did is we had an extensive session with this team that, hey, what is your process? So when we discussed the process, we started building something in ServiceNow platform. We told them that, hey, this is possible. Your main motto is to show end-to-end process to the user, and the user who is requesting the implementation of that IP on the firewall should know where the process is. That was their main concern. Because
Mm-hmm.
what was happening is if it is over email and if it is over IP, they were losing the whole context of it, and they wanted a central place where they can also
Track.
uh, track, and they can also see that IP is related to which business application, and that is possible in ServiceNow because you have a centralized CMDB. So we said, yeah, we can make this possible. Now, what happened is because the process was so complex, the main challenge, and people were used to use Excel and Word documents, it was very hard for us to move people from that particular process to the platform. But when we actually digitized this, people really liked it. We had some difficult times, and that is always the case when you
Right.
implement some new product. You always will have a problem convincing the users, and there will be some critical customers who will give you critical feedback, but we should consume that feedback in a positive way and improve on it and explain them, hey, how, okay, this is good, you are telling me this, but see how we can help you, right? How
Right.
ServiceNow can help you. So during this process, what we did is we first started with a form, again intake. Now intake of this process, it is not intake of the application. We already did our own intake in past, and we decided that we will start with this application. So how can a person request, right, to have a firewall, I have an IP whitelisted on a firewall? So simple form, we created a form, we created a flow. Our
Mm-hmm.
first step was to digitize the process without any integration. So we implemented a catalog item, a simple flow, assigned the task to a respective team, done.
Okay.
This first happy flow was done. Second, let's try to get the information real time from the tool and show it to user
Mm.
that what are the rules currently implemented there. So
Okay.
we did that in the second phase. Now, when we were doing this, we had some issues. Again, lessons learned that on the catalog item, if the tool, if the third party tool is is not responding to you in a synchronous manner, uh, it's a bad user experience, right? The user who is requesting the form should not wait there for that much
Right.
time. So we had to do some design decisions that how can we do this. So again, this we missed during our intake procedure, and this we learned during creation of the catalog item, during creation of the integration, the second phase. Then we found some solutions around it, and then we implemented the integration. After that, how can we secure our credentials? Very important things. First, we started with basic credentials. Our security team was on our neck that, hey guys, you can't do this. You have to use, I don't know, mutual authentication or whatever you want, certificate based authentication implemented. So that was again one of the lessons learned and the improvement in governance that we should discuss this point upfront so that the teams will be prepared for this kind of uh, questions, right? And then the last part was, how can we make sure that the person is updated in each and every step of the flow? Because the team who was maintaining the pipeline was, they really wanted to show the end-to-end visibility of what is happening in their pipeline. So we had to do a bidirectional integration with that tool and ServiceNow. And there, what we did is we actually sat with them, my team,
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay.
we are ServiceNow experts. We know how to get data into the platform
Right.
efficiently. So we got involved there. Um, and then we started creating some generic APIs so that they can keep updating the whole flow into ServiceNow and show it to the user. So this was kind of a use case which we had, and why I was telling our lessons learned also is, I think it will help the audience to think in that manner that, hey, this can happen in future. So why not to ask the authentication question, for example, well in advance?
Okay.
Should we? Uh, the most important part which helped us is we divided this whole use case into parts. We really had our own, uh, let's say, when I say we, it is the team who was responsible for the application. They were very clear that in these 3 months we want to do this, in these 3 months we want to do this, and in future we want to do this. This is very important also for people who are going to use the platform, but as well as it also helped me as a platform owner that, nice input, guys. So next time when we onboard another application, we can use this as a template for another team.
Right.
So we learned from the other team that, hey, we can improve in this manner and you can make your process more effective in this manner instead of uh, just waiting for the customer to come to you. Why not to improve in the beginning? And so the use case was very clear. We want to implement that.
Right.
There, the final piece was, uh, which was cherry on the cake, is once the process is complete or when you request something, a message towards Microsoft Teams. So we have a generic integration at the moment with ServiceNow and Microsoft Teams. If something is assigned to your team, you get a pop-up in your Teams channel that, hey, incident is assigned to you, or your request has been closed, and so on. This was helpful for both the end user who is requesting the implementation as well as the DevOps team who was working in the background scenes, because they also know that, hey, we got this request, it is not closed for 2 3 days, what happened with it? Let's go and check the integration. And I would say this is a suggestion and this is an advice that everyone should follow, is have a error handling flow in your flow. If
Okay.
the integration fails, as a platform team or as a delegated developer of that particular application, have an incident created on your name, because you should be proactive instead of customers coming to you saying,
Right.
hey, this form is not working. You have it in the flow so you get notified, or you create an incident for your team and you already investigated before someone comes to you. This was very important. We didn't do it for initial applications, but then we, like I said, consumed the feedback from the stakeholders. We consumed it and then we started implementing
Okay.
error handling flow in each and every custom application which we create.
Okay. So, how much total time it took for you to complete this whole your first use case?
Phase one was done very quickly. Like I said, between 4 to 6 months. I'm also considering what we just discussed, right? The governance and everything. But
Yes.
if you consider the dev time from the team who was going to work on this particular scope application in App Engine Studio, it only took like, I think, 2 months, 1.5 months or 2 months to go live with the phase one. Phase
Okay.
two took another 2 or 3 months. Phase three was quicker because they already then knew the platform.
Okay.
So
So
I would say
simultaneous
it's
learning
like,
will also help there.
yeah, it's like umbrella. Initially, you take more time, and then the time goes
Well,
down
yes.
when you know the platform. And that is what we see right now also. We, on an average, every day we have around 7 to 8 deployments done.
Okay.
When I say deployments done, it is enhancements on the existing applications
Okay. Okay.
or adding functionality to existing applications.
Great.
So that was sort of the use case lessons learned. And what I would suggest with respect to how you can overcome this is you really need, uh, as a service now platform owner, for example, me and my lead, we really need to know what the technology is capable of. So if you don't have a knowledge, I think you should involve ServiceNow in these discussions on the right time. Get in touch with your account executive so they can bring in some
Okay.
creator workflow expert within your domain, and then that person can explain, or reach out to customers who are already using App Engine Studio from longer time, who can share their uh, governance, who can share their lessons learned and experience on this particular topic. Because I'm also doing this kind of sessions with multiple customers. I also did in past sessions with some customers who were already using App Engine Studio, and
Okay.
that has helped a lot because people who are really using it can talk more about the technology than people who are selling it,
Right.
I would
Obviously.
say. But the ServiceNow product team is very transparent, and they are very good in explaining the advantages of why you should use App Engine Studio and in which way you should use it. But again, the design decision is always in the developer's hand. Everyone is different and everyone thinks it in a different way.
Right.
That's my one of the things. And keep in touch with the recent trends. What is coming new in App Engine Studio? What is the
Mm.
future
Right.
of App Engine Studio? Um, Make the training material available to your people, to your citizen developers within the organization on time, so that they can learn on the new trends and they can learn all about the technology in time. What we did is we created our own learning material, but we also gave now learning links there. So if someone who is very eager to learn about Flow Designer, we put the course, the on-demand course from ServiceNow about Flow Designer. So the
Mm-hmm.
person went there, learned more about it, came back to the system and start developing it. And the final thing which for us it helped is try to expand more and more in this area. Right now, what so I will just say this, like, I have seen customers who, you know, implement the governance or implement
Mm-hmm.
this technology, and then they, once the implementation is done, they just ignore it. They just take time to process the feedback. I would say we should be more reactive and proactive at the same time to process the feedback and to communicate it. Hey, thanks for giving the feedback. See, we improved it in this way. It's not exactly how you wanted, but hey, we at least put our efforts and we did this for you. Can you evaluate it again? And if you have any feedback, can you come back to us again? Have an open dialogue and create transparency towards the users of the platform, which will help you to uh, expand this particular technology within the organization more and more.
So I would say like after complete implementation and let's say 1 or 2 months after we have implemented it or maybe 6 months, we have to sit with the customer and like include their team and means via meeting or something like this, what we are doing right now. It is also a good way to get the feedback because we should not expect that they will send the feedback most of the time. But if we sit like this, we talk, just like friendly manner and see how things go proceed. So I think this will be a good thing to extract what exactly they are experiencing.
I think it's a good point, which and thanks for reminding me. I forgot one thing, which is we have for example, we have developer meetups, right? Like we have it in India, we have it here also in Netherlands.
Right.
Similarly, internal, we have ServiceNow event. We call it ServiceNow Guild event, where people can come and have an open discussion with ServiceNow developers. So that is one way of getting the feedback.
Right.
And I'm not talking about small group. I'm talking about more than 70, 80 people who joins that particular event. We talk about our roadmaps. We show what we are doing at the moment. We also tell them, uh, hey, we did this for you. Do you have something new for us? Can we help? And then we just collaborate with each other and we create some nice applications within the platform. But yeah, you are right that having a conversation on regular basis with the customer helps a lot rather than
Right.
waiting for the feedback. And uh, I I will also share one negative thing which we had was there was one application which we were trying to build, but people were not happy with it, and they completely moved away from ServiceNow and they did it in some other automation system
Oh.
within the organization. Uh, that was really a team's decision to do that
Hmm.
because of some complexities and the licenses structure which we had. Uh, but we respected that. We know why they did this, and it can
Right.
happen that you might face the same scenario in future, but then you should have a strong reason to defend the technology because
Definitely. Yep.
we need to keep our emotions sometimes. I am a ServiceNow guy. I like ServiceNow, but I need to keep my emotions sometimes
Definitely.
away and think as a customer that what is going to benefit for them.
Yeah, this is a great point. We love ServiceNow, we do ServiceNow, but obviously customer will be happy when they see things transparent and they are actually getting value. It doesn't matter if I'm using AI, will definitely help them, right? It is
So
completely their what value they are getting. Even
yeah,
because when AI and all these things were not there, customers were happy that time also, right? We cannot
true.
say because of AI, if I put AI in something, it will benefit everyone. So we have to see the context every time.
Definitely. And also, I think it's a learning curve when you speak with multiple people and when you understand these kind of trends. I think it makes you more stronger with respect to your capabilities, and it allows you to think out of the box. That hey, okay,
Definitely.
he wanted that, it was not possible here. Can we do some innovation and implement it here? So that's a good learning curve, I would say.
Right.
Um, so that was my story about App Engine Studio. So I would say that many things are coming with App Engine Studio. We have a great low code no code platform. So explore it. If you need help, you know there are so many resources out there. For example, community, now learning. We have those academy sessions from ServiceNow where
Right.
we can learn about App Engine Studio. We have some webinars which we can follow and learn from it. Um, then I'm just thinking to conclude the key takeaways for this particular session. I would say with respect to App Engine is um, governance is very very important. Invest time on it. Don't
Okay.
ignore it.
Right.
Uh, you want to give power to people, but to give power, you should be very clear with what you want to do. Then the next thing is um, consume the feedback. Don't be upset with getting negative feedback.
Negative.
Negative
Right.
is always going to take you towards positive part. And again, be very open to say no. So if something is not possible, it's not possible. If people are going in a wrong direction, it's our duty to bring them on the right track and help them to understand why we should do things in this manner. And last but not least, uh, learn, read more about the technology and stay up to date so that you can uh, do more with App Engine Studio. Because now with Gen AI, so many things are changing, and I'm pretty sure that in this area, creator workflows, we are going to get more with generative AI in future.
Right.
So that was my story, Ominder, about App Engine Studio and my lessons learned and how we can roll it out within the organization.
Great, great, Ashutosh. I can say that it is amazing. And you know what experience you have shared, it's not there anywhere in any blog or anything. It's completely original and very, very helpful for anyone who is really going to start with App Engine, creating an app. And personally,
Yeah,
I felt like, I have learned a lot in this 60 minutes with you. And I will also take these things and try to implement all such, feedback in my company, in my organization, and get benefited by it. And I must
yeah,
say, whoever will listen to this definitely have, a firm understanding of what you have to do when you are going to start with App Engine. It's not just you go there, open AES, and start creating an app. There is
no,
90, more than 60% thing which we have to think before in order to get
yeah,
100% result. So again,
yeah.
thank you so much for all such, amazing experience today.
Thank you so much for having me and us and letting me speak out my heart with App
It's my
Engine
pleasure.
Studio. Yeah, and of course, we can still do a deep dive into some technical topics later on with
Definitely.
respect to App Engine Studio because I wanted to keep this very high level so people understand how they can start with it and how they can move on with App Engine Studio, how we configure the pipeline, and all these things we can discuss in technical details in later sessions. And there is mm, material out there, I think, with these topics, but we can still discuss it in future.
Right.
That being said, thanks again for having me, and it was pleasure speaking with you.
Same here, Ashok. And sure, thank you so much for joining.